this part of the concluding session, we have two very significant declarations. The first declaration is called the Big Tent 4 Communique. It is being produced by a collection of networks which have been working together over the last 5 years, and this is in the series of those communiques. We have two of our very good colleagues, Norbert Steinhaus from the Science Shop in Bonn, and Lian Chan Heng, feminist scholar and activist and researcher from Malaysia, who will read this communique. It has been in the works over the last few weeks, in particular during the course of the conference. So let me invite Norbert and Lian to present to us the communique of Big Tent 4. Norbert.
So we give you an introduction, and thank you to Christina for this, for organizing, Christina Jesus and all the group of GUNi for having organized this wonderful conference and giving us the opportunity to share our experiences, to get inspiration, and give us the floor to read out this communique of a process of a global dialogue and a discussion which took part over the last weeks. So the Big Tent is a group of university and community networks that have been coming together since 2010 to share information and call for further action to enhance community-university engagement.
There are three parts to this communique. The first part, the grand challenges and the imperative of transformation. The second part is let's build transformative knowledge to drive social change. And the third part is the call to action. The grand challenges and the imperative of transformation. Many countries have used the so-called grand or global challenges, referring to poverty and gender inequality and other forms of discrimination, climate change, energy, global health and healthy aging, agriculture and food security, as a means of orienting public investments in science, technology and innovation.
As global challenges, they cannot be adequately addressed by single actors. Coordination and collective action are needed to mobilize the necessary resources.
With their social, cultural, economic and psychological implications, they represent a shift towards a new era, which concerns all levels of the global community, with important social and environmental problems, markets and mindsets, global cooperation and democracy.
Democracy should not only be understood as a form of governance, but as a support for the idea of knowledge co-creation, from scientific knowledge to people and from people to scientific knowledge.
Many different stakeholders have to be involved as the problems are multidimensional, transdisciplinary and systemic. It requires new ways of thinking, which goes beyond traditional frameworks and disciplines and has to lead to a rethinking of research and innovation policies.
The broad societal risks and problems represented by the challenges are at the same time also providing opportunities for new activities, goods and services, and for moving towards a smart, sustainable and inclusive economy.
The way politics, business and society deal with the grand challenges will strongly affect economy and society globally in Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe and the Americas.
We need new policies, new governance models, new innovation solutions and strategies, and new investment models to solve the problems.
The forthcoming great transformation towards sustainable societies requires forward-looking and knowledge-based management.
Let's build transformative knowledge to drive social change. Scientists are an integral part of society. Their linkages and interdependencies with other social groups, their facilitation of conversations and dialogues to create new knowledge is recognized and appreciated.
However, civil society has its own requests towards science and research policy and has the impression that the science system does not effectively take on the pressing societal challenges.
Science and its enterprises need to be supervised by society, embedded in its moral and ethical compass, and engaged with human concerns of the next civilization.
There is evidence for a shift towards a challenge-driven research and innovation approach.
Community-based organizations have a special role to play. They have the expertise and specialized knowledge to be the voice of the voiceless.
Education should help to create problem awareness and promote systemic thinking, thus empowering people to participate in and shape the transformation process.
Transdisciplinarity in this context means to learn the different languages for the dialogue, taking into account the multiple and layered identities of citizens, including race, gender, class, sexual orientation, ethnicity, culture, and ability, among others.
Universities need to move beyond the rhetoric by reaching out to help society, its communities and small businesses. We need a richer and deeper engagement between academics and the people they serve. The change of direction must be towards action.
Research funding agencies must make meaningful financial investments to ensure that community leaders participate on national advisory councils, grant review panels, and policy-making bodies related to research, and that their voices are heard.
Research and higher education institutions must be held accountable for equitable partnerships with community-based organizations through clearly articulated memoranda of understanding that describe the principles and a plan for how this will be monitored and evaluated.
A call to action. Why now? We are calling for an ambitious set of actions now for two reasons. First, negative effects of the grand challenges are intensifying. Second, and perhaps most important, there's a critical mass of leaders and institutions in every part of the world who are prepared to animate the transformation process to better futures.
We call for action to recognize that knowledge is both diverse and plural.
We call for action to increase the capacity for imagination because creativity initiates change.
We call for action, encourage creative solutions at the interface between differing epistemological frameworks and the links between knowledge production and actions for social change.
We call for action to establish a transparent process for priority setting for public research funding.
We call for action to integrate civil society in formulation of research questions through mobilization of practical, traditional, and indigenous knowledge in research programs and projects.
We call for action to ensure representation of civil society in bodies of publicly funded scientific institutions on eye level.
We call for action to establish a science forum with a civil society research fund, strongly focusing on research on behalf and benefit for CSOs.
We call for action to foster capacity building of CSOs in science policy.
We call for action to promote transdisciplinary sustainability research that has clear links to the grand challenges.
We call to action to establish developmental monitoring and assessment of the progress in addressing the grand challenges.
We call for action to strengthen the establishment of community-based participatory institutions such as science shops, community-based research centers, or other structures of community campus partnerships.
We call to action to give free access to research results.
We call for action to ensure adequate support for the startup and continued operations of community-based research ethics review boards.
We call to action to advocate for administrative changes in research funding and policy for the benefit of community leaders, community-based organizations, and their allies.
Finally, let's commit to create a global social contract with society to build transformative knowledge to drive social change. Thank you.
Thank you.